Hey guys, Simon here from BTS, and today I'm going to be giving you my 3 tips for how to get poker without solvers. Okay, so I know solvers are a very popular topic nowadays with the modern game, but I'm going to give you my 3 tips on how to get better if you don't know how to use solvers, or you don't want to use solvers, or you find them a bit intimidating. I'm going to give you guys some strategies and tips how you can still get better in your game without the use of these tools. Now, before we get into it though, I need to let you guys know that we're still giving away Dimmy to Raids tips for how to crush pre-flop. If you want to get better at your 3-betting game, crush your opponents out of the small blind and the big blind, I really recommend you guys go check out the link below. It's in the description. It's a really fantastic little article. Really recommend you check it out. Completely free in the description below. Please check it out. Alrighty, with that out of the way guys, we're going to get into the topic today and we're going to be talking about how we can get better without using solvers. This is a very common question that I get, particularly from new students that aren't particularly comfortable using solvers because they can be a bit intimidating, particularly building your own trees and etc. It can be a little bit tricky. So how do you get better if you don't know how to use a solver or you don't have access to one? Now, the first tip, and I think this is probably one of the biggest and most understated things in poker nowadays, is working on your mental game. This is one of those things that you can improve without, off the table. Doesn't even require any hard technical poker skills. It's a soft skill that you can work on always. And the ways that I recommend you guys doing this is setting up a really good routine around how you prep yourself to play poker, and that means waking up, having breakfast, getting out of bed, not just rolling out of the bed and clicking the buttons on the computer. I mean go for a walk, get a bit of exercise, maybe go for a little bit of a meditation. Make sure you're eating right, make sure you get some exercise, make sure you're feeling good, feeling fresh, get a full night's sleep. Before you even get on the tables, you're setting yourself up for success before you play. Now, this is before we actually get onto the tables, and then when we get on the tables, it's important that we maintain focus and play at the highest possible level. You might be a 3 to 5 big blind winner at your absolute peak, but if you're sleep deprived, if you're tired, if you're tilted, all of a sudden you might be a break-even, slightly losing player, and all of a sudden, even if you're spending double the amount of time on the table, you're not even going to be making as much money. You might even be losing money if your B game or C game is that far off your A game. So it's super important that you guys, really set yourselves up for success. I think short, sharp sessions are really, really critical here. I think that it's pretty easy that if, you play long sessions, you play for 6 hours without a break, you start to get into autopilot, you stop thinking about decisions, and you're certainly not making as, the most plus AV decisions possible. So setting up a really good structure around your routine, how you play your poker, making sure you're in a good headspace, recognizing when you are on tilt. There are going to be times when you're going to go on downswings, you're going to go through break-even stretches, it's going to feel like you can't win a hand, and it's going to be easy to get discouraged, get frustrated, and all of a sudden you start making a couple of bad decisions, and these downswing periods can extend for a lot longer than maybe they should. So it's really important that that this mental game is really strong. And part of also having a strong routine is also the post routine. So what happens after you finish your session? Now, I recommend that you guys, at least review at least a few hands from each session. Now, I know that for me in particular, I don't like to review hands as soon as I've played a session. If I played 2 or 3 hours, I don't want to I'm not in the mind space to go back and think critically and analyze my hands. But I think it's really important to go back and review your hand histories. And this leads me on to my second tip around how you get better without using solvers. And that's reviewing your hand histories. Now, you can either do this by yourself, but the best way to do it is to do this with an extra set of eyes. Have a friend that plays similar stakes than you. Go on to forums. There's plenty of forums. Discord groups are really popular with hand histories, and share your hand. And now, the thing with reviewing hand histories is it's important that it's done well. So I'm going to take you through one of my hands that I played this month on stream. And I'm going to talk about my thought-making, my decision-making process during the hand, and what kind of questions that I'm asking myself. And these aren't, what I think the solver would do. It's just more of a logical based, does this make sense for my range, for my bet sizing, and versus my opponent? So I have a hand here that I played at 200 zone. I've got Queen 10 of clubs, and it gets opened, to 7x from MP. And already this is a hand that, isn't going to be super relevant to look at a solver. Someone with, 200 bigs opening to 3.5x, it's likely a recreational. It is zone, so it's likely not the strongest player. So all of a sudden ranges go out the window. What a solver is meant to be doing is kind of not really important. And it's important that we're able to review and look over things with a bit of an analytical and logical framework. So we've got queen 10 of clubs here, and the first decision is, what's the best thing to do? Do we want to play this hand? Do we want to fold it? Do we just want to call? Now, I think from the small blind facing a 3.5x raise, we definitely want to be 3-betting. So I would be 3-betting this always. And particularly versus what we think is a weaker player, I'm keen to play a big pot with a couple of suited Broadway cards against what is likely a weaker player. So, we 3-bet to 26. Does my sizing make sense? Now, typically the sizing out of position is about 4x. He made it a little bit bigger pre-flop, so we don't have to go as big, and we're a bit deeper, so we don't want to just pile in money when we're out of position. So I think this sizing does make sense. We get the call, and we get this flop, ace 10 deuce. And this is already where we might be differing from what a solver doing, and we start thinking about what our hand would want to do. A solver here might like to high frequency c-bet, or it might like to big bet mix and include some hands like this that have the backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw. But against what I think is a recreational player, I either want to check and give him a chance to bluff off into me, and I don't think I'm getting any value from betting. So I don't think this hand accomplishes much by betting, if at all. You could argue that maybe a small block bet to get a little bit of thin value might make some sense, but I don't think logically that makes a ton of sense. So I check this on the flop. We face a half pot bet, and then I think it's a pretty easy check call versus a recreational. We call. We get this 6 of clubs on the turn. We check again, and we face another bet of $75. Another pretty smallish bet when we call. And on the river, we get this 10, and the guy goes all in. And when we're thinking about what to do in a decision like this, my biggest question is, do I think this is overbluffed or underbluffed? And I think versus a recreational, it's pretty easy for them to overbluff here, particularly when we have the 10 of clubs. We block a lot of the strong stuff like ace 10 that he might have. And I think that particularly since we checked the flop, we let him he could be betting off with all kinds of crap. I think this is a relatively easy call. So this was quite a big hand I played. I lost this one to ace 10. It's even tough to know whether it was a recreational. We were making that assumption based on 3.5x. But what I'd do is I'd review this hand, and then I'd post this into a forum, into a group chat, send it to a friend and say, hey, this was my thought process during the hand. What do you guys think? Does this make sense logically and cohesively? It doesn't have to be, this is what I think a solver would do. This is what I think, the optimal bet sizing is. In Solverland, it's this is a real game. We're playing against recs. We're playing against bad regs. What does it actually make sense to do, in this spot, and how am I thinking about it? And getting feedback from others is going to be super, super helpful in this journey. And so I recommend you guys do a little bit of hand reviews every day. Every time you play a session, you don't have to go through all the hands. I know some guys are every hand over 10 big blinds they review. I just have a look at a couple of the big ones, a couple of interesting ones, and send one off. Send one to a Discord, send one to your friends. You'll be amazed at how much this little process will help you get better at the game. Alrighty, so onto the third tip. And my third and final tip for how to get better with solvers is watching experienced poker professionals use solvers themselves. You don't have to learn how to run a solver and build trees and learn how to extrapolate reports and do all this quite hard stuff that can be quite intimidating to get the benefits of a solver based strategy. There is so much great free educational content on YouTube. We've got plenty of stuff on BTS in the academy where you can get better and learn solver-based strategies without actually having to use a solver yourself. When I first joined BTS, I remember I used to I had no idea how to use a solver. I thought they were really intimidating, and all I would do is I'd find a couple of coaches that I liked, and I'd watch their videos for how to c-bet, and I'd watch them on an hour-long webinar, and they'd show me they've used the solver, and this is how they've created a c-betting technique for button versus big blind. And this was maybe something that took their computer 10 to 20 hours to run. This is something that would have taken them 4 to 5 hours to prepare, and then it would have also taken them 1 or 2 hours to actually administer this lesson. So when you think about the time that it takes you yourself or as a person to run a solver and create these strategies versus the time it takes as just a viewer engaging and watching content, it's a really, really efficient way to learn solver-based strategies without actually using solvers yourself. Now, like, all I can say, I can show you guys now. If we go onto the BTS, YouTube page, this is all free stuff. And we go into the uploads. Now we're going to see some play and explains, which like describe thought processes, stuff that might be really helpful for your hand history reviews. We've got stuff like this, how to play monotone flops. This is a video I made, how to c-bet on monotone flops with solver-based strategies. And, watching a 15, 20-minute video, you're going to learn how to appropriate solver-based strategies without actually having to use a solver. So it makes it really easy to consume for you guys. And I think this is some stuff that you can do that's, going to really help you get better at your games. Keep up to date with what other people are doing in terms of from a theory perspective, without having to go through that effort of getting a computer that's good enough to run sims, learning how to run them yourself, and then also learning how to read into this data appropriately. That's not to say solvers aren't important. I think the strategies that we delve from solvers are super important, and it's pretty key to at least try to get some kind of understanding around how these are working. But this isn't the be all and end all, and this isn't and there's definitely ways to get better at poker without this. Alrighty, so guys, let me know in the comments below, what did you think about my 3 tips? Did I miss anything? Is there something else that you guys can do to get better without solvers? Keen to hear your thoughts on it below. And until next time, cheers.